Well, good evening, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror, Alberta. And I'm finally back in Mirror, Alberta after a whirlwind weekend in southern Alberta. We drove to Rolling Hills on Saturday. No, when was it? Friday? I can't even remember. And then the next day we drove up to Calgary to pick up some stuff and then back to Brooks. And then the next day over to Rainier, back up to New Sarepta today, and finally back to the Whistle Stop Cafe for a book discussion with Ray McGinnis. That was pretty interesting. We have a bunch of copies of his book at the Whistle Stop Cafe. I would encourage you to come pick one up and sign the petition to trigger a referendum on Alberta independence while you're at it. The reason for my very late podcast tonight is this guy.
Christopher Scott.
Yeah, this guy. I wanted to really quickly discuss what this fella is saying. He's responding to a video that I made where I said that there's only two ingredients necessary for independence: the will of the people and international recognition. Let's see what this fella, I believe his name is Anthony, never spoken to him, by the way. Let's see what he has to say about it. And just as an introduction, Anthony is a failed Green Party of Canada candidate from somewhere in BC. I apologize, I can't remember, but you can look him up and find it. Anyway, so this failed Green Party candidate from BC is chiming in on Alberta independence, and this is what he has to say. Let's listen.
This is Christopher Scott, an Alberta separatist and owner of the Whistle Stop Cafe in Alberta. His argument is simple. Independence only needs two things: the will of the people and international recognition. That sounds neat and tidy, but it's wrong. In Canada, a province can't leave unilaterally. The Constitution and Supreme Court say separation requires federal negotiation, and without Canada's consent, international recognition doesn't happen.
Okay, so he's basically saying that the only way for a province to leave Confederation, if they don't agree with the conditions of Confederation, is to have Confederation approve it. Now, what he's talking about is, I hate chip bags. What he's talking about is the Clarity Act. And the Clarity Act was a Supreme Court decision due to the Quebec secession referendum in the 90s. And it does say that if a province has a referendum and there's a clear question with a clear answer, then that will trigger negotiations with the federal government, which may result in secession. So what he's saying is, if those negotiations don't work, if they don't agree, Alberta can't leave. And that is completely not true. If you want to boil that down to the basics, he's really saying if you're in an abusive relationship, you can't leave unless your abuser and your abuser's family agrees that you can leave. Ridiculous. Even international law says that a region or a group of people can become independent from the state that they're currently in if 4 criteria are met. And let me read them right now. They have a permanent population, a defined territory, a functioning government, and the capacity to enter relations with other states, which Alberta would if there was a clear majority that wanted to be independent. It does not say anything about the country needing to give approval. It does not say only if their constitution allows. It doesn't say any of those things. It's very, very, very clear. Constitutional consent is not required. You hear that? If the people of Alberta have a referendum and they say they no longer consent to be governed by the Canadian Constitution and Canadian law, and they have international recognition saying that they would recognize them as an independent state, the Canadian Constitution is irrelevant to Alberta. That's kind of the whole point. And, I do find it, I don't know if it's amusing or, yeah, I do find it amusing that so many people are chiming in and continuing to try and spin that narrative that Alberta requires permission. We don't. And if you don't believe me, hold my beer and watch us. there's no historical backing for what this guy is saying at all. Let me read just a little bit more here for you. Oh, I lost it. If you look across history, it isn't constitutions that create countries. It's countries that create constitutions. That's how it goes. The core problems that Alberta faces in Confederation are all based on the Constitution. They're all constitutional issues. That's kind of the point why Alberta needs to leave. We could have said, and some of us wanted to say before, hey, we just want to fix the Constitution and get on with it and stay in Canada and have everything be great. Well, that's not going to happen. And the reason for that is the Constitution has insane hurdles to open it, for starters. We've tried twice in Canada, Meech Lake and Charlottetown, both times failed. And even if we did open the Constitution for amendments, do you really want to do that with a prime minister who muses about the notwithstanding clause kind of being dealt with and getting rid of that pesky notwithstanding clause so that the federal government could have more control over the provinces? Do you really want to open the Constitution when people like this and people in Parliament right now would prefer to make it so that Alberta could never legally pursue secession? Do you really want to open and change the Constitution with a prime minister that states in his book Values that the ordinary citizen needs to give up their rights or have their rights restricted in some fashion in order to survive? I really don't. I don't at all. And if you consider that Alberta was never asked in the first place if they wanted to join Confederation under those terms, neither was Saskatchewan. Why is it such a problem? Why do people have such a problem with Alberta making a decision now? It makes no sense. Anyway, there was more I wanted to talk about, but it's really late. I got to get to bed. I've had a really long weekend, but I wanted to make sure that I at least responded to that so that you knew, all of you folks that have been sending me that video in Facebook Messenger, I wanted you to know that what Anthony is saying has no evidentiary or factual basis whatsoever. And in this conversation, he loses as well, very similar to how he lost in the federal election as a Green Party candidate. So we're 2 for 2 there. Anyway, have a great night, folks. We will see you probably tomorrow. And we got a big day Monday. Don't forget that we're meeting in Calgary at the BMO Center, the Big Four, for a, what are we calling it? An event to do with Alberta independence. I'll be there, and I hope to see you there as well. Have a great weekend.